This is Philly Drone Tech with Tom Brunt. Sponsorship provided by AWeber.com, GetFlywheel.com, and Wistia.com.
Hello there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Philly Drone Tech here on the phillytech.org Netcast Network. I'm Tom Brunt. Before I get started, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping chores like I usually do. Mainly, if you are listening to me on an audio-only podcast network, which I understand I'm available on, it really would be best for you to look at me in the video realm. This is more of a visual medium that I use this podcast for. I talk about a lot of websites and sometimes do demos and the such like that. So if you can, go to phillytech.org and look for Philly Drone Tech, and then you could look at me in all video brilliance. So now let's start the show. I got a lot to talk about in this episode. First, as I usually do, we talk about the FAA. Well, what I have to report this episode is that there is a real estate photographer in Arizona named Douglas Trudeau, who is now the first and only legally licensed real estate photographer for drone photography. He has received a Section 333 exemption from the FAA, and provided he follows a couple of rather strict rules, he is good to go. And as such, with all the real estate drone photography you've seen up to this point is technically against the law. However, Douglas will be the first person that is been legally allowed by the FAA to shoot. He is using a Phantom 2 quadcopter, similar to Humpty right here. And let's go over some of these rules here. First thing he has to do is he has obtain a personal pilot's license within 120 days. Personal pilot's license, and that includes a full cleared medical certificate. He has to mark the aircraft, FAA's words, as experimental in as large of lettering as possible. How large do they expect it to be on a craft that's this size? Provide for an additional spotter on the ground while flying. Limit each flight to 3 to 7 minutes. Limit the height to no more than 300 feet. And the final thing he has to do is place warning signs reading, attention, aerial photography in progress, remain back 150 feet within a 150-foot perimeter of the property. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is what Douglas has to do in order to legally sell services to operate his drone for real estate photography. Meanwhile, right next door to the property he's shooting could be a drone hobbyist with the same quadcopter, and basically he is allowed to do almost anything he wants without any of the restrictions and have no training whatsoever, let alone a pilot's license. The only thing that's different about this is that Douglas is doing it for profit. It's as if the FAA is just purposely trying to stifle business use as much as possible, and it's just such a wrong approach. Until they work out rules, this is how they're going about. You can, if you want to do this yourself or legally for profit, you can ask for an exemption from the FAA. Wait maybe about 6 months or so for them to hopefully grant it to you, and then start going after your full pilot's license. So this is a real crazy way to go about this, and let's hope it's pretty short-lived. So there's my first story. Next story that has to do with the FAA. They recently have sent booklets to a 12-page booklet to law enforcement officers around the country. They're looking for their help to be able to find and prosecute illegal drone flyers, whether it's a hobbyist flying recklessly or somebody that's illegally using it for profit. Some analysts have said that this approach may not work. The FAA may find that law enforcement really isn't going to be that interested in helping them. They've got a lot of other things on their plate, a little more important than what they'll see as doing the FAA's job. Unless you were doing something that is disturbing the public, or doing something obviously wrong, like flying over a stadium, or over crowds of people, that's an obvious danger, and you could be cited by the police for that. They may find that the police really just aren't going to be that interested. This is part of what I said previously. I call it the whack-a-mole approach. Let's just try to get everybody that's doing it. There's so many people doing it, they're not going to have a chance at doing that. If you remember back in the early 2000s, the recording industry tried a similar approach with people downloading music illegally. Just sue them all. And that didn't stop people from doing it, and it didn't work for the recording industry, and I don't see it working for the FAA. And what it's going to amount to is just more of a waste of time when they should be trying to put together reasonable regulations. So we'll see if this has any bite to law enforcement agencies, and I'll report that in upcoming episodes. So let's take a little bit of a sponsor break, and when I come back, something that's close to my heart, in sports broadcasting. The first FAA-approved use of a drone for a live sports broadcast. So I'll talk about that when I come back. Today's show is sponsored by Wistia. Wistia is a video hosting and analytics platform that helps businesses get the most out of online video. We use Wistia here at phillytech.org. Flywheel, a managed WordPress hosting platform built specifically for designers and creative agencies, and helps thousands of designers across the world launch projects every day. Aweber is local to the Philly region, helping entrepreneurs, agencies, and small businesses connect with their customers through email marketing. Go to aweber.com/phillytech to find out more. And by Soho Mail, professional, low-cost email with business-class features and security. Okay, welcome back. Well, the next story I have for you comes kind of close to my heart because my main career is in sports broadcasting. I'm a broadcast engineer. And, just recently the X Games concluded in Aspen, Colorado, televised exclusively, as always, from ESPN. So did you watch any of the coverage? Do you know what I'm about to talk about? Well, ESPN debuted what they called Drone Vision. Yes, that's right. They used a drone to capture some of the action from the X Games. They did this under the approval of the FAA. How were they able to do this? Well, a couple months ago, the FAA approved 7 companies, aerial photography companies, to the Section 333 exemption to be able to operate for film and video television services, operate drones. So ESPN partnered with one of those companies. They had to adhere to some strict guidelines. They weren't allowed to use it over crowds, but that worked out well with some of the ski slopes and the high jumps that they used. Also, how they did it is they had actually 2 operators. One operated the drone itself and flew it, and then a second operator handled the controls for the camera. This was not a consumer Phantom by any means. This was an 8-prop copter with a Myobi stabilizer gimbal and a much higher quality camera, plus a live HD link to bring the feed back to the production truck. Now, this was a big experiment for ESPN. Nobody really knew how this was going to turn out. But from what I understand, a lot of footage made air. There were no crashes, no mishaps, and it was very successful. Which this is very good that this happened. This is only just the beginning, folks, as the FAA sets the guidelines or allows companies on a on a piece by piece basis to do this kind of work, you're going to start seeing it in live events more often now. So this was very good news. That brings me to my next story about broadcasting, which is also very good news. As it turns out, CNN is partnering with the FAA to do research on how drones can be integrated into live journalism. Let's see what it says here is that their cooperation agreement will integrate efforts from CNN's research partnership with Georgia Tech Research Institute and the FAA, and this has already begun. So CNN is basically a test bed for the FAA to see how drones can be used safely and effectively for news gathering. This is very good, and now I've come down on the FAA hard for their lack of coming up with sensible regulations, but I'm really happy that they did this. They are actually partnering with a broadcaster, they are actually getting input from somebody that has a lot of experience and will bring a lot of experience to the table as far as how exactly they intend to use drones for their broadcast. So the fact that the FAA is partnering with a major broadcaster says that they are starting to open up and listen and be a little more open about coming up with regulations that hopefully will be applicable to the technology. Maybe the days of having a full pilot's license may be short-lived after doing this research with CNN. Well, the next story I have for you, you most likely probably already heard about. It happened just a few days before I recorded this podcast. You probably heard about the drone that was found crashed on the White House lawn. Well, as soon as I heard that it was 3 o'clock in the morning and it was found next to a tree, I immediately disregarded any sense of foul play or terrorism and went, oops, it's a hobbyist. Well, about a day later, they found out, yes, that's exactly what it was. It was a hobbyist. And actually, to the guy's credit, the guy immediately called the Secret Service and fessed up and said, yeah, that's mine. So I don't know what he was thinking. You can see by the pictures here, it was a DJI Phantom 1. I don't know where he was. He obviously must have been somewhere near the White House, at least, somewhere downtown in D.C., and a first-time pilot. So if you're just starting off flying these things, probably doing it at night and doing it well near the center of the U.S. government, probably not the smartest idea. So hopefully the Secret Service will give it back to him and he'll have a nice story to tell. Well, what will this mean, though? It could be good or it could be bad for the drone regulations. It could be the thing that kind of pushes the FAA to, all right, we've got to get some sensible regulation done now, and let's get it done. Or it could cause the panic. Let's just ban all drones. Hopefully not. Obama wasn't at the White House at the time when the drone crashed. I believe he was in India. But CNN did talk to him about it. And here's some of Obama's thoughts on it. He said he's assigned several federal agencies to work with stakeholders to create a framework to ensure drones are safe and aren't violating people's privacy. Now, here's a quote that I liked. I'm glad he said this. He said he likened the drone industry to cyberspace, which has brought new technologies U.S. laws are still trying to catch up to. He then goes on to say, these technologies that we're developing have the capacity to empower individuals in ways that we couldn't even imagine 10 to 15 years ago, Obama said, pledging to work to create a framework that ensures that we get the good and minimize the bad. I hope to take that as he understands that there are a lot of commercial applications that are viable and useful with this drone tech, and that we should develop it properly. Time will tell. I guess something else I should tell you that just recently also happened. This was the next day after this happened. Since it was a DJI Phantom, DJI, the makers of the Phantom, have put out a firmware update that basically will ground their drones if they are within a 15-mile radius of Washington, D.C. Now, supposedly, they already do this for major airports. It's built into the software. Since it is a GPS-enabled device, it knows where it is. So if you're too close to an airport, it will either fly very low or not take off at all. Now, in the case of Washington, D.C., if you live in Washington, D.C. and own a DJI Phantom, well, you have an expensive paperweight now. But time will tell if others are going to do that, and if that's how we're going to start regulating these things somewhat, is that they're at least from the consumer level, so that this doesn't happen again. This was just a consumer mistake, but it could have had major implications, of course. So we'll see what happens, and obviously just kind of stay tuned, and I'll keep updating you as I find out more of how the FAA responds to this. Next, let's have some fun. There's this great website called travelbydrone.com, and if you look at it, basically it features pins on a map from all over the world, and with those pins, users submit their drone recorded videos of a particular location. If you have a video that's on either YouTube or Vimeo, it basically links to those videos from your account, and it forms, like I said, pins on a map. So let's take a look here. Here's Pennsylvania, and we'll kind of zoom in a little bit here, and let's go into where I'm from, in Doylestown here, and look, there's a couple in there. Let me click on this. Hey, how about that? That's my video. Yes, I put a couple videos up there on the site, ones that I've done. I put Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and Ocean City, New Jersey. So let's go back out a little bit here, and let's go down to Philadelphia here, and you can see how many there are here in Philadelphia. So let's click on this, and let's look at this one over here. And oh yes, that's definitely that's Philadelphia there for you. So this is like a fantastic site if you really want to look at the drone videos that are all submitted by users, and you can submit your own. So it's a lot of fun. I really like this. This is a cool little website. Well, that's about all I have for you for this episode of Philly Drone Tech. And as always, I love to hear from you. You can feel free to follow me on Twitter at DroneGuyTom, or you can also send me an email at droneguy@tebweb.com. I'm pleased to say I'm starting to get some emails now. In fact, I'd like to read some to you. First one here is from Tito. And he told me that he enjoyed my review on the Syma X5C copter that I did a couple shows ago. But he also wanted to tell me about this other one called JJRC H8C quadcopter, which is comparable in price and features to the Syma. It might be worth taking a look at. It's got the same type 2-megapixel camera. And basically it's just another form of the Syma X5C from what I can tell. But I did look at it and looked at some of the reviews on it, and some people like it and say they call it the X5C, is it the X5C killer? I'm not so sure. It is. It does have some, I think each unit has like pros and cons to it. The one thing about the HRC, the H8C, is that it has a 7.4 volt battery as opposed to 3.7, so it's got a little more oomph to it, I guess you could say. But I think the camera quality is about as comparable to the Syma, and they are about the same price. So that's good there. But and in a follow-up email, he told me something that really I found kind of interesting. Another one from JJRC is the H12C. And this one looks like it retails for about $80, and it operates in headless mode. What headless mode is here, let me practice here with, I'll show you, here's my Syma. Traditional copter, here's the head, here's the front of it. So if you turn it sideways as it's flying away from you, now if you move the joystick forward, it's now going to move this way toward what it sees as the front. This can get very, very confusing if you're even an intermediate flyer. I tend to avoid flying that way with these, just to avoid orientation issues. What headless means, it's similar to what the Phantom can do. Headless means that regardless of which way this is pointing, let's say it's pointing this way, when you move forward on the stick, it will move forward in relation to you. Forward, back, left, right, regardless of where the front of the craft is. These are much easier to fly that way. And it also says it has a return to home feature, which kind of tells me that it has GPS. Now for $80, that's pretty impressive. So thanks, Tito, for pointing that out to me. And I think I am probably going to take a look at it. And if I do get one, I'll be sure to do a review on it. Lastly, he made a comment that he says that he thinks the FAA allows people to fly drones under 55 pounds and under 400 feet away from people and buildings and during the day. And yes, that is true. That's pretty much what they recommend for hobbyists. But overall, the points that I do in my podcast is that if you're doing it commercially, then you're just not permitted to fly, period. Hobbyists are allowed to permitted under those guidelines. But again, if you wish to do anything for profit, you're grounded pretty much to keep legal. And that's all my push that I always talk about with the FAA. So hey Tito, thanks. I'm glad you liked the show. And let me go to one more here. There's a guy by the name of Jason. Jason, he also liked the review I did on the Syma X5C, but wanted to know where to get it from a U.S. distributor. He's having a lot of trouble finding U.S. distributors. Now, when I first I bought two of the Symas a couple months ago, back in the fall, and I bought them both on Amazon. And in both cases, I found a U.S. supplier, and I got them delivered in just a matter of days. Unfortunately, I've been looking on Amazon lately, and I can no longer find any U.S. suppliers. They all ship directly from China, which can take about 3 to 4 weeks. With the Syma, I found much better success going to eBay and going to an eBay store. There were numerous US-based suppliers that had stock of the Symas, and you can get those in just a matter of days. So eBay may kind of turn into my new go-to place to look for quadcopters and accessories if I kind of want them quickly. I'm a little bit impatient. I don't really want to wait a month to get it. So there you go. There you go, Jason. And he also mentioned that they said it would be great if I could provide links to the topics that I talk about. And Jason, I agree with you. And I looked into it. And one thing that I have here at my disposal on the PhillyTech.org Netcast network is a blogging site called Medium, medium.com. And with that, I am able to post links. So for starting with this show and all of my shows, you can go to medium.com/@DroneGuyTom. And there's the link on the screen there for you. And you'll find links to everything I talk about in the show. And you'll find some occasional blog posts and ramblings about, stuff that I think about in between doing these shows. So Jason, thanks for that tip, and it looks like I'm able to do it too. So again, glad people are starting to watch, and I hope to bring more stuff to you soon. So thanks for watching this episode, and I hope you contact me on Twitter or through email, and or read the blog reports on medium.com. And I'll see you next time.